Unveiled. 3 spine-chilling true lake house hauntings that expose sinister secrets and cursed past. The lake house loomed in eerie isolation. Dark clouds swirled above, and a chill crept through the air as Claire stepped onto the property. It was supposed to be a fresh start. Instead, the place felt like a tomb. Shadows danced among the trees, whispering secrets of the past. Was she ready for what lay ahead? Each sunrise promised serenity, with picnics of laughter near the sparkling water. Emily and Zach ran free, their shrieking joy echoing through the woods. But as dusk fell, the harmonious sounds melted into an unsettling quiet. Claire often found herself staring into the depths of the lake, those glistening waters beckoning her closer. That's when she noticed them, the shadows flickering just out of sight, like ghosts slipping between worlds. Then the whispers started. Claire would be washing dishes, and suddenly, she would hear soft voices drift through the open window. Almost familiar, but distorted, like lost memories. "Come play," they'd say, sending chills racing down her spine. She brushed it off, telling herself it was her mind playing tricks until the kids began to speak of friends in the woods. "Mom, they want to come play with us," Zach exclaimed, an enthusiasm mixing with a creeping unease. The neighbors' warm smiles transformed into veiled glances the moment they heard Claire had moved in. "You'll be safe here," they told her, but their tone suggested anything but. Dread coiled within her, inching ever closer to a panic that settled heavily in her chest. Were they all hiding something? Every creak of the old cabin felt like an accusation, echoing with secrets she wasn't meant to uncover. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation drove Claire to the library. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight as she rifled through old newspapers, each headline more disturbing than the last mysterious disappearances, drownings that sent locals scurrying away from the water's edge, and whispers of a dark legacy. Each piece pulled her deeper into a web she couldn't escape. The mayor's name appeared frequently, a hidden puppet master behind the curtain of town life. As twilight descended one night, the air thick with anticipation and dread, Claire stood frozen as she spotted a figure lurking at the edge of the woods. Dark and indistinct, it seemed to shift and dissolve into the trees. The icy air clawed at her throat as it vanished, but the warning it radiated lingered like a poison. Outside, the rustle of leaves sounded almost alive, a sinister reminder that time was running out. With Emily and Zach claiming new friends in the forest, Claire felt herself spiraling down a rabbit hole. Shadows in the corners of her vision multiplied as panic surged within her. Was she losing her mind? Or were they truly surrounded by something far worse? Uncertainty hung in the air like a noose, tightening around her heart. Just as the night deepened, a distant whisper called out for Emily, beckoning her too close to the edge, a point of no return. What was hidden beneath the lake's surface? And could Claire protect her children before the dark history swallowed them whole? The night stretched on like an endless void, shadows twisting and turning with every gust of wind. Desperation tugged at Claire's heart as she rushed back inside, slamming the door behind her. The unsettling whispers clawed at the edges of her sanity. "It's just the wind, it's just the wind," she chanted. But the growing void in her stomach told a different story. She found Emily and Zach huddled together in the living room, enchanted by the flickering light of the fireplace that seemed to dance wildly, illuminating their faces with an unearthly glow. The children exchanged secretive glances, laughter bubbling under their breath. Claire's pulse quickened. "What are you two up to?" she asked, forcing a smile. But the way they looked at her sent tremors down her spine, a look that hinted at hidden knowledge, a bond forged with something beyond her comprehension. "Mom, we were playing with our friends," Emily said, eyes bright and wide. "They're really fun, and they want to meet you." "Who?" Claire's voice trembled. "The ones in the woods," Zach chimed in, enthusiasm dripping from every word. Fear swamped Claire, twisting like a knife in her gut. "I don't want you playing out there anymore." Stay close to the house. Promise me. Why, Mom? Emily frowned. It was the first crack in their carefree innocence, and Claire could see doubt creeping into her daughter's bright eyes. Just promise, sweetie, Claire urged, her voice now laced with panic. As they reluctantly agreed, a thunderous crack of lightning illuminated the windows, casting chaotic shadows that felt almost alive, swirling like fingers reaching for her children. The comforting glow of the fireplace dimmed as if the house itself was taking a breath, exhaling a sinister chill. Claire's instincts screamed at her to leave. Rain began to pound against the windows, a torrential downpour that mirrored the storm brewing inside her. She felt trapped, as if the walls were closing in, but there was something more pressing that tethered her to the spot, the desperate need to protect her children. The storm howled, and with it came a barrage of whispers, rising from the depths of her fear. Come play, come to the lake. The voices echoed her children's earlier joy but morphed it into a haunting siren song. In that moment, Claire recognized them not as false friends, but as something much darker, a malignant presence entwined with the isolation of the lake. Suddenly, there was a loud thud against the door, the sound resonating like a gunshot in the fragile silence. Heart racing, Claire turned towards it, her body frozen in a primal instinct of fight or flight. Do you hear that? She whispered to her children, who were now wide-eyed and silent. Zach nodded, clinging to his sister, both of them trembling. The laughter and happiness they had shared only moments ago evaporated, their innocence swallowed by the unseen horror that loomed just outside. As she crept towards the door, another thud followed, a rhythmic knock, almost like a soft heartbeat, steady and relentless. Each thud echoed through her soul, drawing her closer to a truth she wasn't prepared to face. Mom. Emily's voice quivered, breaking the silence. What if it's our friends? What if it's not? Claire breathed out, panic flaring in her chest, her instincts screaming to keep them safe. But the pounding persisted, growing louder, demanding attention. There was something behind that door that wanted to get in, something that could shatter the thin veil of normality they had left. Just then, the whispers turned into a cacophony, rising to a fever pitch, drowning out everything else. It all seemed to converge into one word: play. Claire's heart pounded as she glanced back at the children, eyes filled with unshed tears of fear. Should she open the door? In that moment, she knew. The night was only just beginning. What lurked just beyond the threshold? Would they succumb to the lake's call, or could they fight their way back to safety? A sudden crash rang through the room, snapping Claire from her grim thoughts. The door shuddered violently against the frame, as if something immense and furious was trying to break through. A burst of icy wind swept inside, extinguishing the flickering flames of the fireplace, plunging them into darkness. The shadows leaped and twisted, the flicker of the storm outside barely cutting the pitch-black haze. Mom! Emily screamed, her voice piercing the silence, and Claire instinctively reached for her children, pulling them close. The warmth they had shared moments before gave way to a bone-chilling terror, a smothering blackness that breathed around them. Claire gritted her teeth and whispered urgently, "Stay close. Don't let go of each other." She felt their small hands grip her tightly, their little hearts racing in synchrony with her own. The thudding grew more frantic, like the pulsing of a monstrous heartbeat, and then silence. For a moment, the darkness seemed to close in, stretching time and heightening Claire's dread. Just as she thought it had stopped, a high-pitched laughter pierced the stillness, echoing from outside, twisted and manic. "Play with us." The voices taunted, mingling with the wind, slipping insidiously into her thoughts. Claire recoiled as a jolt of dread rushed through her. They were beckoning her children. "Come out and play, don't be scared, we're just friends and all," Claire shouted, her own voice shaking as she turned towards the door. "We're not coming out." The words felt weak, wavering in the face of whatever lurked outside. Zach and Emily stared at her, their faces illuminated by brief flashes of lightning, eyes wide with fear. "But Mommy, it's fun. We can be with our friends," Zach pleaded, his innocence desperate and unyielding like a blade to Claire's heart. "Those aren't your friends. They're lying." Claire's voice came out harsher than intended. She didn't know how to fight the fear that gripped her. Self-doubt brewed within, mixing with the horror. Had she been too strict? Were they just children playing make-believe? But their laughter was twisted, Unnaturally joyful, a shiver bypassed her spine. Suddenly, a crack split the air as the door flew open, unveiling a dark silhouette outlined by the pitch-black swamp behind them. Claire stepped back instinctively, shielding her children as tendrils of murky shadows coiled into the living room, reaching, probing, as if sniffing for something it had lost. "Come it could. Come, I know you want to. We just want to play you wanted it." The voice echoed like a cruel lullaby, wrapping around Claire's throat, squeezing. "Don't listen," Claire yelled, her heart racing. "We need to get out of here." Frantic, she scanned the room, feverish thoughts sprinting in her mind. A window. She could get them out through the back. No sooner had she made the decision than a figure slipped through the doorway, pale, faceless, a grotesque mockery of her children's features twisted into something malevolent. It moved like liquid darkness, oozing forward. Claire felt paralyzed, the air clinging to her lungs, thick like syrup. "Mommy?" Emily's voice trembled, unsure and wavering. "Run!" Claire screamed, heart hammering, shoving her children towards the exit, adrenaline overcoming her fear. They stumbled but caught their footing, eyes wide with fright. They weren't just in danger anymore. They were cornered. Suddenly, a piercing screech ripped through the air as Claire's gaze darted back to the dark entity. It lunged toward them, its shadowy form dispersing into a myriad of shivers and shrieks. Claire lunged for the window, praying they'd escape the horrific grasp of whatever this was. As she reached for the latch, she felt icy fingers brush against the back of her neck, a whisper curling around her mind. "Don't leave, stay and play with us." Claire's heart sank. They needed to act fast, or they'd all be ensnared in the dark blanket of torment. Would they break free from the shadows, or would they be drawn into that abyss, forever lost to the whims of sinister forces? As the children's breaths quickened, behind her, Claire's world blurred, a cacophony of fear and despair pulsing around them, ready to consume. Would the lake's secrets be revealed at the break of dawn, or would the night swallow them whole? Claire's hand fumbled with the window latch, her heart thundering. Another screech surged from the dark silhouette, a sound that echoed like shattered glass. The room felt smaller, the shadows pressing closer, hungry and alive. Time stretched painfully as she wrestled with the latch, her breath coming in desperate gasps. "Mommy," Zach's voice quavered, his grip tightening around her waist. Fear etched itself deep in his wide eyes, mirroring Emily's terror-laden gaze. Just a second," Claire muttered, fighting to keep her own panic at bay. The shadows danced in the corners of her vision, whispering promises of play and fun. Claire shook her head violently. She wouldn't give in. The latch finally clicked open, releasing a rusted sigh of victory. With a force that surprised even her, she flung the window wide, revealing the tempestuous night outside, a whirlwind of rain and wind, howling like a wild beast. The swamp beckoned them, treacherous and dark. Just as they prepared to climb through, the entity lunged, a wave of shadow and despair that filled the room with a chilling darkness. It wasn't just a shape anymore. It was a tangible thing, surging forth, a suffocating mass. Claire could see the mockery on its face, her children's faces twisted with an unholy grin. "Please," Emily whimpered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Don't let it take us." "No, we are stronger than this," Claire shouted, her voice forging a path through the chaos. She pulled her children closer, each heartbeat fueling her resolve. They would not be swept into the malevolence. Not while she breathed. With the storm raging outside, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the dark room, revealing dozens of shadowy figures waiting, eyes glimmering like shards of broken glass. They surrounded them, hungry and expectant. "Stay with us," they sang in unison, their voices a haunting chorus that filled the air. The song wrapped around Claire's thoughts, murky and intoxicating, trying to pull her under. She forced her mind to focus, reminding herself of the love she had for her children, a bond thicker than darkness. "Run." With a surge of adrenaline, she maneuvered Zach and Emily through the window. The world outside was a chaotic blur of rain and wind, but the air felt alive, electric with potential. With a final look back at the room, the faces leering, the shadows stretching towards her, she climbed through, almost losing her footing. The ground was slick beneath their feet, mud sucking at their shoes as they stumbled away from the house. The darkness behind them shifted, roaring with frustration, Reaching like skeletal hands they sprinted. Claire's mind raced. The woods surrounding the lake loomed monstrous in the rain, but they had no choice. She needed to get them to safety, away from the shadows that wanted to claim them. Every step felt like a marathon, their breaths mixing with a cacophony of fearful whispers. Claire could hear them taunting her. "You can't escape, you're never alone." Each word felt like a dagger to her heart, but she forged ahead, dragging her children through the woods, desperately searching for a spot of sanctuary. Suddenly, a flash lit the trees, revealing a strange, hollowed-out trunk near the edge of the forest, dark, gaping, like a mouth waiting to swallow them. "Mommy, what if it's worse inside?" Emily trembled, her voice trembling. "It's our only chance," Claire replied, her voice steely despite her fear. They had to try. She ushered them toward the opening. As they squeezed inside, Claire dared to breathe for a moment, steel panic mingling with the lingering terror. But the hollow trunk felt like a waiting predator, the shadows still creeping, still watching from outside. They huddled together, the chorus of darkness growing louder, chanting promises of games and eternal joy. Each word sent a chill through Claire's veins. Just when she thought they might be safe, a sharp knock echoed on the trunk, sounding like a heartbeat amplifying their fear. "Let us play," the whispers echoed from outside, merging with the pounding rain. "We know you are here." Claire's heart sank. The shadows hadn't given up. She pressed her ear against the cool, damp wood, the chill creeping up her spine. The knock resounded again, a rhythmic, ominous pulse. What did they want? Suddenly, the trunk began to tremble, shaking as if something large was trying to force its way in. The children clung to her, their eyes wide with terror. Would the trunk withstand it? Or would they be ripped from their fragile sanctuary? "Please no," Claire whispered, a desperate plea against the impending darkness. The tremors intensified, and then, all at once, the whispers faded. Silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating, as if waiting for something to break. Where had they gone? Was the danger merely biding its time, or had they retreated? Just as she started to hope, the shadows returned, more sinister than before, whispering a new chant that chilled her to the bone. "Join us, forever." What did they want from her children? Claire could feel the cold breath of dread inching closer, a darkness that promised more than mere playfulness. The night was far from over. As the trunk quaked violently, Claire knew they might be out of time. What terrifying truth were they about to uncover? The trunk shuddered, the sound a chilling drumbeat against the night. Claire gripped her children's shoulders, attempting to shield them from whatever horror awaited. The silence that followed was worse than the thunderous roars outside. It was the kind that wraps around you, squeezing out breath and hope. In that oppressive stillness, Claire's heart raced, echoing in her ears like a warning bell. What if they wanted something more than just to toy with them? The shadows outside were mere inches from devouring their sanctuary, and she didn't dare imagine what would happen when they broke through. Then, without warning, a whisper cut through the thick air. "We can take the pain away." The voice was soft, alluring, as though it carried promises of joy and peace. Claire's resolve faltered. How tempting it sounded, to surrender the fear, to let it all drift away into the darkness. "Stay strong," she urged, shaking with effort to ward off the call. Emotions polished with terror and desperation collided within her. The darkness fed on fear, and her children needed her to fight back. "Mommy," Zach's voice trembled again, laced with panic. "What if it gets us? What if we can't go home?" Drawing a shaky breath, Claire glanced at the hollowed trunk walls, feeling the pulsing presence outside, like a heartbeat waiting to consume them. She understood the depths of their terror. She felt it twisting in her own gut. "No, sweetheart. We'll find a way out. We have to trust each other." A resounding crash echoed, and suddenly the shadows surged forward, pressing against the trunk. The whispers became more frantic, more enticing. "Let us in. You want to be free. You want to feel no pain." Zach clutched her tighter, his small body vibrating with worry. "Mommy, please. I don't want to play anymore." The trunk groaned under the weight of the shadowy figures. Claire's insides twisted at the thought of what those things outside wanted. Were they alive, or merely remnants of horror that insisted they should be part of this dark game? Then a new tone surfaced within the cacophony, a child's laughter, snared somewhere between joy and madness. It echoed high and low, with an undercurrent of sinister delight. "Come out and play." We'll be happy together forever." "No," Claire shouted into the void, her voice breaking like a dam crashing under pressure. "You don't know what that means." The trunk rattled harder, and the whispers morphed, blocking out everything else. "You can't hide. You can't escape. Join us and be free." With a sudden jolt, the trunk splintered at the edges. Claire felt her heart drop. The air thinned with terror as she gasped for breath. She turned, catching Emily's gaze, and saw a flicker of desperate hope that returned with her mother's fierce resolve. "Follow me," she shouted as the trunk pitched dangerously. Above all else, they needed a plan. She pushed against the trunk's trembling wall, and they squeezed through, desperate to escape and reclaim their chance at survival. Emerging from the trunk, they found themselves surrounded by an unforgiving dark. Only flashes of lightning showed the grotesque trees that twisted like tortured souls. The shadows at the edges of the woods twitched, pulsating with unspeakable hunger, inching closer as strands of cold wind brushed against their skin. They ran, darting deeper into the woods, adrenaline pumping through their veins. Each crash of thunder felt like a judgment day, pounding down on them. Yet the strong threads of hope still wove through Claire's mind. "Where to now?" whispered Emily, her voice brittle yet calm amidst chaos. "Over there." Claire pointed to a clearing, a small ghost of light flickering like a dying candle just ahead. But as they approached the clearing, the air thickened once more. Shadows gathered like fog, swirling around them with palpable anger. "It's a trap," Zach squealed, pulling back. "No, we can't stop now," Claire urged, charging ahead, the bittersweet warmth of hope urging her on. But as they crossed into the clearing, the light extinguished, plunging them into the profound night once more, swallowed by a wave of suffocating darkness. The whispers crescendoed, the shadows danced around them like living nightmares, filled with rage and agony. "Join us, we have so much to show you." What awaited them in the dark? Would they be lost forever, or could they uncover the truth buried deep within those shadows? Claire could feel the darkness breathing down her neck. They were not finished yet. Each heartbeat screamed for survival, anyone's, everyone's. They staggered in place. Behind them, the chorus swelled with a newfound fury, chanting lingering words that echoed, "Forever, forever." Time hung heavy, poised on the edge of an abyss. The secrets whispered on the wind were only beginning to unfurl as Claire caught a glimpse of something shifting among the shadows. Something terrible. What would they find there? Would they discover salvation, or the very thing that would seal their doom? Claire's breath came in short gasps, the darkness swallowing their sounds as if absorbing every last shred of hope. She could feel the coldness wrapping around her, biting at her skin with icy tendrils that whispered secrets she dared not uncover. The shadows around them twisted and writhed, like a nightmare made flesh, pulsating in a chaotic rhythm that spoke of desperation and despair. "What do we do, Mommy?" Zach's innocent voice broke through the festering dread, trembling like the leaves in a gust of wind. Claire wanted to shield him from the uncertainty, to tell him everything would be okay. But deep down, she felt the weight of hopelessness pressing on her chest. "Stay close," she replied, forcing her voice to steady. "We'll find a way out, we just have to keep moving." The shadows thickened, the air crackling with an energy that made her skin crawl. They edged forward, guided by an invisible thread of fear, drawn deeper into the expanse of the woods, where trees loomed like ancient sentinels, watching, waiting. With each step, the whispers grew louder, coiling around her mind, wrapping her thoughts in a haze of deceit. "I can help you," a voice cooed, silky and smooth. Claire felt it brush against her like a lover's touch, sending icy shivers down her spine. "Just let me in, get away from us," she snarled, spitting the words into the dark, defiance pulsing through her veins. But the shadows surged in response, eager and relentless, closing the gap between their fear and despair. Claire could almost taste their hunger. Suddenly, Emily froze, her eyes wide as they glimmered in the dim light. "Mom," she whispered, pointing a trembling finger into the gloom. Claire turned to follow Emily's gaze. Through the hazy veil of shadows, she saw it, a silhouette shifting among the trees. A figure, pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes that glinted under the intermittent flashes of lightning. It swayed gently as if beckoning them forward, and Claire felt the sickening urge to step closer despite the dread that rooted her to the spot. "Don't look at it," Claire shouted, fear sparking through her limbs. "Just keep your eyes on me." But the wind shifted, carrying with it a voice so sweet, yet so terrifying. "Help is here, we can be free together, join us," Zack screamed, a terrified wail that sliced through the laughter of the shadows. Claire seized his arm, willing him to run, to flee from that chilling invitation. They stumbled backward, the darkness seeming to stretch and swirl around them, as if the woods themselves had come alive in their desperate pleas. "We need to get out," Claire urged, turning on her heel, her instincts taking over. They darted deeper, away from the figure, and toward an unseen escape, but the forest was treacherous. Roots snared their feet like unseen hands, branches clawed at their skin, and the whispers morphed into a horrifying cacophony, each voice a different echo of lost souls who had tread there before them. Help us forever, what if we can't find the way back?" Emily whimpered, the tremor in her voice clawing at Claire's heart. "We will," Claire insisted, her resolve solidified, a shield against the darkness. Yet doubt crept in, gnawing at the edges. Each crack of thunder felt like a warning, each howl of wind a reminder that the shadows were not just pursuing them, but consuming their very essence. Suddenly, Claire stumbled into what seemed like an opening, yet it wasn't salvation, but a clearing that pulsated with a sickly glow. The ground beneath was no longer soil but glistening with an unearthly sheen, reflecting faces twisted in agony, their mouths opening and closing in a soundless cry. For a fleeting moment, she hesitated, caught in the web of mesmerizing horror. Then the shadows surged again, angered by their defiance. "Join us. There's no escape. Forever, forever run," she screamed, shattering the trance. She yanked Zack and Emily forward, but the ground beneath them quaked, pulling them down into its embrace as roiling figures clawed at their legs, the whispers heightening into a frenzy. The darkness clawed at their resolve as they fought against it, desperately trying to break free. Claire threw her weight against the resistance, trying to drag her children away from the precipice of despair, her heart pounding a thunderous beat in her chest, each beat resonating with one question. Were they walking into a trap, or was there a chance they could escape the eternal night that loomed before them? As the shadows lunged, tendrils reaching eagerly towards them, Claire could only clutch her children tighter, feeling the impending doom close in. The sinister laughter of the shadows filled the air, harmonizing with their cries of fear and adding to the growing cacophony. The choice loomed heavy over them, a mere heartbeat away from engulfing them whole. And Claire, filled with an amalgamation of dread and determination, wondered what horror would the shadows expose if they surrendered, what hidden truths would come to light when they least expected it, and at what cost? The ground heaved beneath them, as if alive. Its surface morphed into a mass of writhing faces clamoring for release. Claire could feel the cold sweat pooling at her temples. She fought against the pull, her muscles screaming as she dragged Zack and Emily, their feet struggling against the slick surface. The wails of the lost echoed louder, the cries blending into a sinister harmony that threatened to drown her reason. "Mommy!" Zack's small voice trembled, sheer terror vibrating through its pitch. Claire felt her heart lurch. She had to protect them, to shield them from this nightmare, but what could she do in a place woven with despair? As they stumbled forward, the shadows lunged again, striking with a force that pinched at their skin like ice shards. The whispers morphed into a symphony of anguish, each voice layering over the others, each desperate and hungry. It was impossible to tell where the sound originated, as if the darkness itself were speaking through the trees. Zack gasped, his wide eyes reflecting the encroaching dread. "Are we going to die?" "No," Claire screamed, stealing her resolve. "We're getting out of here." Her voice cut through the chaos like a knife. But the truth hung heavily in the air. What if their escape was nothing more than a fleeting illusion? Suddenly, there was a flicker of warmth piercing through the freezing grip of night, a lantern, glowing faintly to their right. A flicker of hope? With a savage thought, Claire grabbed her children's hands and guided them toward the light, the sheer force of will pushing them onward. As they neared, the glow pulsed, illuminating a figure standing beside the lantern. A woman, her face obscured by a veil of dark hair, swayed oddly, eyes fixed on the ground. "You're not alone," she murmured, barely above a whisper. The words danced on the edges of Claire's sanity, and an eerie familiarity struck a chord deep within her. "Please, just help us," Claire begged, desperation spilling into her words as she felt the shadows inch closer. The woman lifted her head. The moonlight shone upon her features, and Claire recoiled. The woman's skin looked stretched and pale, the hollow sockets of her eyes now filled with darkness that pulsed like living shadows. "You don't know what you're asking," the woman sang, a haunting melody laced with both promise and threat. "They're waiting, we are all waiting." An overwhelming urge surged in Claire. She stumbled back, pulling her children with her. "No, we want to go home." Her shout echoed into the night, anger and fear intertwining, but already the shadows clawed at them, desperate to consume their defiance. "You cannot escape, little ones," the woman intoned, her voice resounding like a tolling bell. "Help is not for those who cannot embrace the truth." With that, shadows erupted, blurring around the woman. Arms like dark tendrils shot forth from the ground, wrapping around Claire and her children, pulling them toward the gruesome figure. They fought and twisted, wrenching free, but the shadows were relentless, hungry for their light. "Mom, I can't," Emily cried, her voice cracking. "No," Claire screamed, the blood pounding in her ears as she felt a burning weight settling on her chest. "Never give in. Hold on to me." In that fleeting moment, the lantern flickered as if responding to her intense emotion. A warmth washed over them as the shadows momentarily recoiled, and the figure let out a shriek that ripped through the air, reverberating with terror. The ground shook violently, a chasm forming beneath them, swelling with darkness. "Run," Claire shouted, her instinct driving her forward one last time, dragging her children, hearts racing in synchrony, embodying an unyielding will to escape. But the light began to dim, fading in and out, as if it were a heartbeat slowing. With a final surge, they leapt toward the flickering glow, but the shadows erupted again, tendrils lunging forward with a chilling hunger that swallowed the night. Claire screamed, the sound swallowed whole by the darkness as they plunged into the unknown. Dread spiraled around her like a vice. And just before she felt herself slipping away, she wondered, what truth awaited them on the other side? And at what cost would their battle against the shadows continue? The impending darkness loomed, and Claire felt the cold breath of despair whispering behind her. For now, it seemed, they were caught between shadows and light, each fighting to claim their heart. The fall into darkness felt endless. Claire's heart raced as she gripped Zach and Emily tightly, the terror echoing within her chest like a war drum. Brutal cold gnawed at their skin, sapling limbs and screams intertwining with the well of despair below. The chasm swallowed them, as shadows tangled with their feet and wrapped around their desperate forms. "Mom," Zach's voice was a frail whisper, strained as if the air itself was being stolen from him. "Hold on. Just hold on," Claire yelled, clenching her eyes shut against an impending sense of doom. She had to push through, had to find a way back to an existence that felt light years away. In that pitch black, a monstrous noise erupted, not unlike the crack of thunder. Was it the darkness screeching, or had they entered a domain where horrors lay waiting, eager for their arrival? That voice, the woman with darkness for eyes, echoed inside her mind. Help is not for those who cannot embrace the truth. What truth? It gnawed at her thoughts like rats in a cage. Suddenly, a pull, a tugging at her very essence. Claire opened her eyes, and before her loomed a swirling void, darker than any night she had ever experienced, a gaping mouth hungry to swallow them whole. She knew she had to fight against it, had to resist the insidious call of despair clawing at her sanity. "Mommy, I'm scared," Emily whimpered, her soft voice lost in the widening chasm of fear. "Stay close," Claire shouted, thrusting her arm out, reeling against the tide that pulled within the black vortex. The sensation of pressure enveloped them, crushing in rather than blowing out. And then, it cracked. The very fabric of the void began to split. Clarity pierced the swirling dark as columns of light erupted like bursts of fireworks, blinding and electric. Claire staggered backward, feeling as if she might float into the ether. This way. It was natural instinct she followed as she stumbled toward the light, its warmth beckoning, promising salvation. Yet as they ran, specters writhed beneath the ground, their faces creasing into anguished masks that twisted and warped in a mosaic of grief. They reached out, grasping with shadowy fingers, desperate to cradle the warmth Claire and her children exuded, the ethereal glow that mocked their existence in the darkness. "Don't look at them," Claire warned, her heart racing with every step. The shadows began to taint the light, creeping upwards as if to extinguish it entirely. The creatures shrieked, their wails orchestrating a haunting symphony, feeding off the fear that hung in the air like a thick fog. Claire felt it, the looming dread of giving in to despair, the frigid grip around her heart tightening with every moment they lingered. A thought flickered through her mind. Escape didn't seem possible, but maybe it was time to confront the truth, dangerous as it was. Mom Zach's voice broke through, pulling her from her growing recklessness. "What is happening? Are we going to make it?" A cry pierced the air. It was high and raw. The woman appeared again, her ghastly visage swirling in the edges of the light, gliding forward like a predator closing in for the kill. "You cannot run from your fate. Embrace it." The words slithered into Claire's ears, slathered in malicious honey. Suddenly the lantern flickered back to life, glowing a fierce and fiery hue that pushed back against the shadows. But it flickered like a dying ember, and Claire knew time was short. "Hold on to me," she barked, and they surged forward, heartbeats thundering as a wave of dark shadows crashed around them, splitting the ground. The force thrust them into another realm as they crossed through the veil of light. With a jarring thud, they fell onto solid ground. Silence enveloped them, hanging thick like mist. Claire blinked and scanned their surroundings. They were in a vast, desolate field, where the moon hung low and no shadows dared to linger. "What just happened?" Emily breathed, her voice trembling. Before Claire could respond, a howl reverberated through the air, cold and distant, yet chillingly familiar. Something was out there. Shadows shifted behind every gust of wind, watchers hidden in the twilight. And lurking in the back of her mind, the woman's words stole her breath. "You cannot escape." Claire's heart sank. They had barely moved from peril, yet the lurking horror would not let them rest. Somewhere, echoes of the lost continued their wailing song in the night. She realized with a dawning terror this place was just another layer of the nightmare. "Stay close," Claire whispered sharply, peering into the endless abyss ahead. They weren't truly safe yet. The truth was still ahead, waiting, ravenous. What awaited them in this new domain? Only the shadows knew, and they were whispering. The chilling howl sliced through the stillness, echoing like a warning bell. Claire shuddered, the hairs on her arms standing tall as she tightened her hold on Zach and Emily. The dim moonlight painted ghostly shapes on the ground, teasing the edges of her vision with shifting shadows that quivered and danced at the corners of her mind. "Mom, what was that?" Zach asked, his voice trembling, breaking the heavy silence that hung over them. "I don't know," Claire replied, every instinct screaming at her to flee. "But we need to keep moving. Now." With their feet whispering against the cool, damp earth, they stepped forward into the smothering darkness. The moon hung like a cruel joke, illuminating the field ahead, yet leaving the periphery shrouded in mystery. They edged cautiously into the night, desperation gnawing at their resolve. Another howl erupted, closer this time, resonating with earthy pain. Claire stumbled, her breath hitching. "Did you hear that?" she gasped, her heart pounding as her eyes darted around. The shadows seemed to ripple, a shiver running through the ground beneath them. "It's too quiet. We shouldn't be here." Mom Emily whimpered, clutching her brother tightly, eyes wide with fear. Just then, the shadows morphed, coalescing into indistinct figures that emerged from the edges of the field, their forms hauntingly familiar. "Run!" Claire shouted, pushing the children into motion as her dread surged. Yet as they sprinted, something pulled at her, a gnawing sensation in her stomach. She turned just in time to catch a glimpse of the phantoms' faces etched with sorrow, their mouths agape in silent screams, as if they were begging for release from their torment. "What are they?" Zach gasped, halting mid-step. "Where do they want us to go?" "I don't know," Claire shouted back, the panic roaring in her throat. "But we can't stop. We have to find shelter." They darted toward a jagged silhouette rising in the distance, a dilapidated structure, its roof caved in and walls leaning as if it held a darker secret underneath its grime. Claire's feet carried her to the front door, twisted on its hinges and creaking like an old ghost. She ushered the children inside, heart pounding, half expecting a cold hand to grip her shoulder. Darkness swallowed them whole. The air was thick and musty, and Claire felt the very walls press in around them. "Stay close," she whispered again, peering into the shadows, straining to adjust her sight. A chill crept through the room, darting down her spine like a viper. They could hear the wind screaming outside, desperate to carry their fears with it. Suddenly, the floorboards creaked underfoot, sending a jolt of panic through them. "We're not alone," Claire breathed, glancing at the children, who were wide-eyed with terror. The shifting shadows in the corners thickened, amalgamating into the silhouette of a figure. "You think you can hide?" It echoed, a voice dripping with malice. "You will face the truth just like the others." "Get back!" Claire shouted, her voice trembling but fierce as she placed herself between her children and the approaching menace. The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing a face twisted with sorrow and rage. It looked like someone Claire once knew, someone she lost in the past. It was a ghost of guilt, a manifestation of every regret she had buried. Claire had implored, voice soaked in despair, curling around her heart like barbed wire. "You cannot escape your choices." Her breath hitched. The lost soul still lingered outside, wailing in grief and need. Claire clutched her children closer, their warmth grounding her amidst the chaos. "We won't let you take us," she cried, but doubt clawed at her mind. Whispering the woman's warning from before, the figure smiled, hollow and menacing, and with each flickering breath, shadows surged forward, encircling them, a dance of despair building to a crescendo. Claire felt the walls pulse, as if the house itself fed on their panic, yearning to consume them whole. "Mom, what do we do?" Zach cried, trembling, eyes darting to the encroaching darkness. Claire's heart raced, decisions clawing at her soul. She could either confront this apparition, this part of her, or escape into the night that beckoned outside. But what could she trust? And was escape real, or was it just leading them to deeper shadows? What if she whispered softly, a horrifying realization breaking through? What if we have to face what we've done? The shadows tightened, hunger in their grasp, and she realized there was no running. All paths seemed to spiral into the depths of her own reckoning. Would they choose to face the past, or plunge into an even darker nightmare? As the walls trembled, a low hiss returned from above, whispering promises of terrifying truths, and Claire, heart heavy with dread, came to understand. This was just the beginning. What horrors awaited in the heart of this cursed place? Would they uncover liberation, or would they succumb to the very fears that haunted them? Only the shadows knew, growing restless for their reckoning. The air was thick with dread as Claire stood paralyzed, her children trembling beside her. In front of them, the figure of the lost soul loomed, swirling in darkness, its form a distorted echo of her guilt. "You cannot escape, your choices have consequences," it taunted, its voice echoing like an ominous drumbeat. "Mom," Zach squeaked, clutching Emily's hand tightly, both of them wide-eyed with fear. Claire felt her heart shudder. They were trapped, surrounded by shadows that dripped with sorrow and rage. "Enough," Claire shouted, summoning every ounce of strength. "You don't own us. We will not be bound by your regrets." It was an instinctive roar, a declaration against the darkness closing in. With that bold thrust of defiance, the shadows quivered, wavering as if they sensed the unbreakable bond of love and protection she held for her children. Suddenly, memories surged up, laughter, joy, moments lost that brought warmth to her heart. Those memories were what mattered. They fueled her resolve. "Zach, Emily, listen to me," she said urgently. "We need to face this together. We don't have to be afraid. Not anymore." The shadows hesitated, swirling uncertainly as her children looked up, faith igniting in their wide eyes. "Tell it to go away, Mom," Emily whispered, fear still evident but trembling with belief. "Let us in," the figure hissed, but Claire took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. "No," Claire yelled, louder this time, feeling a fire surge through her veins. "You are just echoes of what I've buried. You do not define us." In that moment, a radiant light pulsed from within her, illuminating the darkness as her words cut through the oppressive void. Shadows hissed, recoiling as if burned by the sheer power of her declaration. Then came a wait, an urge to confess, let go of the shadows that had clung to her for far too long. I'm sorry for every mistake. For every moment I let fear guide me. Each word was heavy yet liberating, and as she spoke, memories flooded back, the joy, the laughter, the lessons learned through heartache. Look, Claire urged her children, pointing to the phantoms that suddenly wavered, their anguished faces switching to a look of yearning. If they wanted to cling to her past, it was true. Yes, there was guilt, but it wouldn't keep them captive. It's time to let go, she cried, tearing through the facade of horror as tears streamed down her cheeks. You will no longer control me. Zach and Emily clutched her tighter, their faith reinforcing her strength. Shadows churned angrily at the edges, yet Claire felt the light rise within like a surging tide. It felt as if the very fabric of the house would shatter under the weight of their truths. And then it happened. She took a step forward, rising above the fear. The specter screeched, contorting in agony as the weave of shadows tightened around it. We only wanted to play. It howled, echoing the laughter of old. Play? Claire's voice sliced through the darkness. You wanted to imprison us. But we choose freedom. With that declaration, the love resonated between them, a vibrant thread spinning through the void. Light pulsed fiercely, an ethereal glow sweeping through the room, illuminating every corner as shadows crumbled like dust. Mom, Emily cheered, stepping forward, and Claire took their hands, leading them toward the light that grew brighter and warmer, washing away despair. They were no longer just stepping toward escape. They were breaking the chains of their past. In a dazzling flash, the figure shattered, releasing a chorus of mournful wails that faded away into faint echoes. The shadows retreated, slipping back into the very cracks of darkness from which they had sprung. Breathless and shaking, Claire hoisted her children into her arms, the night around them quivering as the oppressive weight lifted. The dilapidated structure groaned, as if exhaling decades of suffering. We did it, Zach exclaimed, filling his voice, while Emily smiled through her tears. Yes, Claire whispered back, heart swelling with pride and fierce love. Together, we faced it and we're free. As they stepped out into the moonlit night, a calm washed over them. The shadows that loomed on the edges no longer frightened her. They became mere wisps that told stories of the past, memories to honor, but not to carry. The lake sparkled in the distance, the waters shimmering as if sharing in their newfound freedom. Together, they laughed, cried, and breathed deep, the night air, invigorated. Let us make a promise, Claire suggested, her heart still racing. To always face our fears together. They nodded eagerly, a pact stronger than any darkness could ever break. As they walked hand in hand into the dawn, the once sinister lake whispered softly, welcoming them home. It was a fresh start, a blank canvas unmarred by past agony. And with every step they took toward the rising sun, the shadows faded into oblivion, leaving only the warmth of newfound hope in their wake. The truth had revealed itself, and for the first time in forever, Claire felt truly alive. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is what keeps this journey going. Only true fans understand the importance of these actions.